How's it going, everybody? I'm just going to make a quick video to help you organize your data better when you're analyzing it in comparison to the ways that I've taught it in the past for free. It's very straightforward. It's very simple. I just strongly recommend that you do it this way because it makes it so much easier when you're analyzing the data. Okay. So again, we've gone through good data, bad data. I'm going to get in more depth with it as well, but just want to sort of show off that we have this column here called good data and another one called notes. Okay. Now with good data, what I do is when I review a piece of data and I know that it is good data, I'll simply come in here and write yes, right? If I want to go quick, I'll just put Y, and that tells me that it is good data. Okay. The next thing is that if I know that it's bad data, obviously we're putting no or we're just putting N when we do that. Okay. And the those those two scenarios is extremely straightforward. However, there's also going to be scenarios where you have a piece of data and you feel like it's real, but you're not 100%. And so what I always put is most likely. And what this is telling me is like it tells me how much I should trust this piece of data when I'm analyzing the data. So in other words, it meets pretty well most of the requirements, but maybe it just doesn't have as many reviews as I thought it should have, or there's something about it that's just throwing me off. And I want to, in other words, be cautious of this piece of data when it comes time to analyze it. Whereas this one here, I know for a fact it's not good data. It only had 3 reviews over the entire year. That's easy. But there's a lot of them that are kind of like in between, and I still, even to this day, I'm not 100% sure which way or the other. And so I put most likely, and it just is a good way to gauge. Now, this next one I'm going to explain, honestly, I don't need to do, but I do it because for the exact same reason as the one that's above that says most likely, but I will put in maybe. And maybe to me is closer to no, and most likely it's closer to yes. Okay, so with maybe, it's like maybe this could be real. Maybe it's on VRBO. Maybe it's something along those lines, right? And honest, so what I'll put in is maybe, but honestly, if I write maybe, I almost never ever look at this data again. But I know that it has a decent amount of reviews, but not nearly enough. But it wasn't enough to feel 100% certain that it wasn't accurate, and it wasn't enough to even feel partially right that it was going to be a yes, right? So I put maybe. You can do whatever you think is best for you, but for these two in the middle, you're definitely going to be uncertain about some data, and you need some sort of way of tracking it with whatever words resonate best for you. But for me, this is what I like to put. Now, one other thing that you're going to want to put in here, and this is going to be really useful for the remote markets that are more of a VRBO heavy market. What you'll notice is we only have the Airbnb listings and not VRBO listings. And so what you can put in here is VRBO. Or you could go maybe VRBO or whatever you want to say, which essentially is just indicating to you that it most likely is on VRBO, or you need to check VRBO. In other words, you see that it has like a good amount of reviews, but not every review. But there's maybe, let's say, like 15 throughout the entire year, and so you're like, well, there's a review almost every single month, right? And you know that there's a lot of VRBO listings in that market, and VRBO is pretty heavy within that market. And so what you can do is then go over to VRBO, find the listing, and check to see if it has those sort of missing reviews throughout the year that would make it look like it has been rented out full time throughout the entire year. So that definitely does happen, and sometimes you just need to check VRBO. Okay. Again, only really recommend that in VRBO heavy markets, which are more of the like traditional small vacation markets nowadays. Okay. So the reason you do this is because what's going to happen is you're going to be tracking all this data, and there's going to be all these different scenarios where sometimes they're yeses, sometimes they're nos, and sometimes they're kind of all in between, right? And then you've got all of this different data as you're going through, but now it's kind of all over the place. So you have these ones are yeses, these ones are no. They could be like this could be yes, no, and it's not the no, having the no information in there is not helpful because this shouldn't matter anymore. As soon as we verify that it's not real data, we don't want to see it. And so if you just click this number 1 right there, it'll highlight this entire row, and then you click the filter button, and then you click the little funnel or filter, whatever you want to call it right there. And then what you're going to do, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. On the good data one, you want to click that there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to see all these different options down here of yeses and nos. Now, obviously, I just sporadically did this really quickly. But let's say you get rid of all the blank ones because you didn't track anything below 50,000 because they're all just bad listings, right? Or that's why they weren't making that much. And then you get rid of all the maybes. You leave the maybe VRBOs. You leave the most likelies. you get rid of all the no's that are showing up, and you leave all the ones that say yes. And then what ends up happening, and if you take a look at this column right here, right, we have all these different numbers. But if you get rid of all the bad ones, you press OK, now you're just looking at significantly less data, and now you're looking at only the good data. And so now the patterns become different in here, where the groupings of 10,000 to 20,000 have now shrunk by quite a bit. And it's easier and cleaner to be able to review this data when you do it in this format. And I cannot recommend it enough to add in yes, no's, and maybes and most likelies into this column, and then filter out all the bad data. So you're just looking at only good data, so you can find that pattern within the data and be able to truly see what's actually happening in this market. Okay. And so that's my breakdown of how to use this column here. Just trust me, it's worth it. It helps a lot. And I apologize that my video is blurry. I don't know how long it's been blurry for, but I hope that helped you guys out, and I'll see you in the next video.